They read the surrender order twice before they noticed I hadn't moved. The Ilvanar Repatriation Tribunal sat in tears above me, robed in the pale ceremonial grey of a body that had never once lost a vote, and the chief magistrate's voice carried the particular flatness of someone reading words he expected to end the matter. Surrender the asset designated Kessel 7. Surrender it within one rotation, or the compact severs Earth's signatory status, effective immediate. I said nothing. I had decided that 3 days ago, on the transport up, somewhere between the second jump and the moment I stopped being afraid of this room. Officer Okonkwo Hale. The magistrate said my name like a correction. You harbored a tribunal-classified asset for 140 days without disclosure. You will confirm its location. I let the silence sit. A junior counselor 2 tiers up shifted in his seat, robe rustling against the marble. That was the first thing that told me they hadn't expected this, not defiance, not pleading. Just nothing. I'd taken Kessel 7 in on an intake shift that should have ended 4 hours earlier. It came through the quarantine gate malformed with fear, formatted with something that wasn't blood but acted like it, and every scanner in the bay screamed contraband biologic before I'd even gotten a hand on it. I logged it as a Class 3 stray. That was the lie that started all of this. It wasn't a stray. It hadn't been a stray in 40 years. The magistrate tried again. Your silence is being recorded as obstruction. Record it, I said. 1 line. Flat. The room had been built for speeches, for groveling, for the long human explanations they'd come to expect from every species that sat where I was sitting. I gave them nothing to write down. A senior counselor, older, mottled gray skin gone pale at the jaw, the kind who'd sat this bench long enough to forget what surprise felt like, leaned forward. You understand what severance means. No transit rights. No tariff protection. No standing in any forum where this compact has jurisdiction. I understood. I'd understood it on the transport, reading the same severance clause 4 times until I stopped flinching at it. We are asking you to weigh one creature against your entire species' position in galactic law, the magistrate said. I've weighed it, I said. That landed wrong for them. I watched it land wrong, a ripple along the upper tier, robes shifting, 3 counselors leaning toward each other in a cluster that wasn't quite panic yet. The magistrate's hand, resting on the bench edge, curled once and went still. He moved to the leverage they'd built the whole hearing around. A display lit above the dais is institutional, the kind of light that made every face in this chamber look slightly drowned. A blockade formation. 6 tribunal cruisers, holding position at the edge of Sol's outer marker buoys, already there, already broadcasting the threat before the vote had even formally closed. Your home system is already contained, the magistrate said. Surrender the asset, or we escalate to full quarantine enforcement. I almost smiled. Almost. I kept it off my face, because that wasn't the moment for it, and because the bit of dignity I had left in this room was the only thing I still controlled. You're welcome to hold position there, I said. There's nothing in that system to enforce against. The pause after that ran 4 full seconds. I counted them. Explain, the magistrate said, and the word came out thinner than the last one had. I didn't. That was the second thing I'd decided on the transport. I would answer exactly as much as the tribunal's own protocol required, and not 1 syllable more. Their procedure required confirmation, not narrative. So I gave them confirmation. Kessel 7 is not in Sol System. It has not been in Sol System for 11 days. The chamber's holographic board, still painting that smug little blockade graphic, suddenly looked like exactly what it was, 6 ships sitting outside an empty house. The senior counselor stood halfway, robe catching on the bench edge, the first genuinely undignified motion I'd seen from this body in 2 hours of proceedings. Where? Beyond compact jurisdiction, I said. That's all the disclosure your statute requires of me. A third voice cut in from the floor, the blockade commander, summoned by relay to confirm the obvious for a chamber that no longer trusted its own obvious. His report came through clipped, embarrassed. 6 cruisers holding position at the outer marker for 31 hours. No signal traffic matching the asset's biosignature anywhere inside the cordon. He hadn't thought to widen the search radius, because no one had told him the search radius mattered yet. You let him sit there for 31 hours, I said, not unkindly. I'm not the one who should be explaining that. The magistrate's gavel hand twitched once and didn't fall. A second counselor, younger, tried to salvage the procedure by reaching for a different lever entirely, the original quarantine breach citation, the one that had started this whole proceeding before it became about the archive. The original charge stands regardless of the asset's prior designation, she said. Unauthorized harboring of contraband biologic remains a severance-eligible offense on its own. Check your own statute, I said. Section governing pre-collapse archive carriers. Harboring one isn't contraband. It's custody. You wrote that clause yourselves, 43 years ago, before you decided the thing it protected didn't exist anymore. Nobody on the bench moved to check it immediately, which told me they already knew I was right and were deciding, in real time, how badly that was going to cost them. I watched the room do the math out loud, in fragments, in the kind of overlapping low voices a body makes when it realizes its leverage has already failed and it is the only one in the chamber that doesn't yet know by how much. Someone called for the bailiff to verify transit logs. Someone else called the call premature. The magistrate, to his credit, didn't shout. He simply said, very quietly, bring up the asset file. Full designation. That was the part I'd been waiting for. Not because I wanted to win it for myself, I'd stopped needing that somewhere around day 60, watching Kessel 7 finally sleep through a full night cycle without waking itself up screaming, but because the tribunal's own file was about to do something I couldn't. The display flickered, resolved, and showed them what their own intake office had logged in the original incident report, the one buried under 40 years of administrative dust. Kessel 7, sole known surviving carrier of a pre-collapse genomic archive. Last confirmed sighting prior to this proceeding, 41 years ago, presumed lost with the Tribunal vault breach. The tribunal had spent 4 decades treating that loss as closed. They'd built 2 generations of policy assuming the archive was gone with it. And they had just spent 2 hours demanding I hand back, sight unseen, the one living thing in this galaxy that still carried it, to a body that had never once, in 41 years, bothered checking whether it might still be alive. The senior counselor's voice came out smaller than before. If this is accurate, the Compact's resource-type treaty with 3 downstream signatories was negotiated on the assumption the archive line was extinct. Renegotiation clauses will need to account for the fact that it isn't, I said. That's between you and your other signatories. It isn't between you and me. A clerk near the rail had already started pulling old treaty annexes, the kind of frantic, quiet work that happens when a body realizes a closed file just reopened underneath 3 other closed files. You filed it as lost, I said. It was the only thing close to an explanation I gave them, and I gave it once. I filed it as found. That's the difference between us. The senior counselor sat back down slowly, robe pooling around him like something deflating. You will return it, the magistrate said, but the certainty had gone out of the sentence. It came out as a request wearing the shape of an order. No, I said. I let that sit too. Outside the chamber's high glass dome, beyond the cyan ambient glow that made every alien face in this room look perpetually underwater, daylight from the system's primary star was pouring through clean and bright, and against it, small, deliberate, exactly where I'd asked them to be 3 days ago, 6 unmarked transports held formation in a loose ring around the building. Not tribunal ships. Sanctuary compact vessels. The quiet fleet Earth had spent 6 years building for exactly this kind of asylum case, the fleet nobody outside our own delegation had thought worth tracking because nobody had thought we'd need it yet. A counselor near the rail saw them first. I watched the recognition cross her face, not fear, just the dawning, deflating understanding of a body that had voted on a question already decided somewhere it couldn't reach. The magistrate followed her eyes to the dome, and for a long moment he said nothing at all. The motion to sever, he finally said, to no one in particular, is tabled pending review. I stood. I didn't smile, and I didn't thank them, because there was nothing in that room that deserved either. I walked to the doors at the chamber's edge, daylight pooling ahead of me through the glass, and I didn't look back to see whether they were still arguing among themselves about a creature they'd spent 41 years pretending they'd never lost. Kessel 7 was 3 jumps away by then, asleep, finally, in a room that didn't have a number on the door. That was the whole answer they were owed. I'd given it to them in 11 words, and they were going to spend the next 41 years deciding whether that had been enough.